Welcome to Wheels, Deals, and Meals, where we talk all things good food, good business, and good cars. And now, here is your host, Arnold Gasita, founder and CEO of Petra Automotive Products. Let's roll.
We are excited for today's show. You know, it's as I look back at all the shows we've done, this is the first time that we've, I think, delved into the medical side. And a good friend of mine actually goes to my church, Alex Milian, Dr. Alex Milian. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. Before we get started with you, I want to make sure I do my due diligence. If you guys like the show, make sure you subscribe, you like it, you comment, you share it, do all the stuff that you need to do on all the social media, podcast outlets, YouTube. That will help us out tremendously. So Alex, thank you for being on the show.
Good to be here.
So how long have you been a doctor?
40 years.
40 years.
84, May of 84.
Always in Houston?
Within an hour of Houston, yes.
Have you always been an ER doctor?
I've always practiced ER medicine. For the first 19 years of my career, I had a family practice, an office-based family practice, and I did part-time emergency medicine. And but in 2007, I switched over to full-time
ER. So how many years have you been doing ER now?
Well, full-time, 17 years? And before that...
A little, yeah. So you had your private practice and an ER.
Yes. So like I would work in my private practice like 4 days a week, and then 1 or 2 days a week I would do emergency medicine.
40 years as a medical doctor. Mm-hmm. That's amazing and incredible. We were kind of joking around before the show about, I want to go earlier or later or whatever, but if I'm going to be seen by a doctor, I definitely want to be seen by a doctor that has 40 years experience, mm-hmm. that has kind of seen everything, mm-hmm. Versus somebody that may be extremely smart, but hasn't seen everything. Because experience counts.
There's no question about it.
You can't hurry experience, right?
Right.
You have to experience it. I remember I used to have a boss who would always tell me, Arnie, you can't hurry experience. You just time has to pass, and it teaches you.
So after my residency, I went and practiced in my hometown, Swinney, Texas. Population 3,000. It's about an hour southwest of Houston. And I remember going there and would get a case, let's say a snake bite. I remember my first 2 cases. It was a chest pain, someone having a heart attack, and a snake bite. Okay, wow. And back then, you just have left residency, so you're looking at books. We didn't have the internet back then. Okay, we're talking about 1987.
Okay,
so it's like, let me grab a book. And okay, what do I do? And back then there was a lot of controversy about how to treat snake bites. Put a tourniquet, cut, and we didn't have a lot of modern things, on how to take care of heart attacks.
Yeah.
So you learn as you go, and after looking at things and looking it up a couple of times, then it sticks.
It becomes second nature.
Because it becomes very important that you know what you need to do. Plus, I would call back some of the professors, and I'd say, hey, I got this guy, and these are some of the unique things about this case, and we talked through it a little bit. So, I still had my connections.
Good.
Yeah.
Which is wise, right? To ask for advice. Mm-hmm. Especially at that younger age. You have people calling you now for advice.
Yeah,
because now you become kind of a professor after 40 years.
Yeah.
So they want you to know. So
it's texting. That's
right. Okay, so Alex, so where are you from? Where were you born?
So I was born in Ciego de Ávila, Cuba, and that was up and coming modern city in Cuba, 100,000 population. My father was a physician there. He practiced pediatrics. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and at the age of 7, we left Cuba. I mean, we're talking about, I was born in 1960, 2 years after Castro took over, and within a couple of years, my dad said, we got to leave here. And so there was a 5-year waiting period before we could leave, and we left in December 24th, 1967.
Did you come to Houston or Miami?
Spain, Madrid, Spain.
Okay.
The waiting list for Madrid was shorter than the waiting list to Miami.
Okay.
So even so, we waited 5 years.
So you went from Cuba to Miami and you were 7 years old?
We went from Cuba to Madrid, spent 3 months there.
I mean, Cuba to
and
Madrid,
then,
right?
And then went to Miami, and we were there for about a year.
But how old were you when you left Cuba?
7.
7 years old. So your dad's a physician. Fidel comes in. Obviously, we know the story, disastrous for Cuba.
Yeah,
And your dad, smart enough, says, we got to get out of here.
yeah.
Packs up the family. We go to Spain. You're there for a few months. Mm-hmm. Then you come to America. Mm-hmm. And you're 7 or 8 years old or so.
Right. Didn't speak English.
Nobody spoke English, right?
No,
Nobody.
no.
So when your dad gets here, what does he do?
So, number one, my dad was at the top of his class. Okay, so he was very well prepared, and he knew more than pediatrics. He takes a licensing exam. The first job that he had was in a mental institution in Georgia. He was there as a house physician. You didn't have to have a license. You just had to have a medical degree, and he had the medical degree plus passed this test called ECFMG for foreign medical graduates. So that equates you with a graduate from here, United States. And so, yeah, that's what he did for a couple of years.
So when he came to Sweeney, when he got part of this residency, did he have to take a test to get board certified or something?
So
Or does he have to go back to school?
Texas was the only state that did not require an internship. Okay. And so all you had to have was your education.
Okay.
And so he took the Texas medical licensing exam.
Okay.
Okay. Now it's called the Flex Federal Licensing Exam, and he passed that and
Became a doctor?
Yeah,
How was his English at that time?
fair, fair. He, when he studied in Cuba, he read the English medical literature, so he was familiar with the language, but he couldn't communicate that well. But patiently he would talk to
understand it, yeah.
patients. Yeah.
And I guess a lot of the medical things are the same, right? Regardless of language.
That's right.
Right. When did you go, okay, I want to be a doctor. I want to be like,
5.
really?
Yes.
That early?
Yes.
So age 5, you wanted to be a doctor, you want to be like your dad?
Well, that's what I saw, and I wanted to do what he was doing. And I remember sitting at this typewriter, one of these manual typewriters, and I would take one of his little prescriptions and I'd roll it up and start typing out stuff, just making up stuff.
Yeah.
And just
Like you're writing a prescription.
That's right. I was playing doctor.
'Cause you're copying
this
that.
This is back in Cuba.
Right, because you're copying that.
Right.
Okay, that's good. So you're 5 years old. You decide you want to go to be a doctor. You're in Sweeney, so you go through your whole elementary school, junior high school in Sweeney. Mm-hmm. Then where do you go for college?
So went to A&M, and I was there for 3 years.
Alex, I didn't know you were an Aggie.
Yeah.
You're an Aggie.
Yes.
That's like a cult.
Well, we have to balance things. So yes, I think.
No, I love it. I
Yeah.
think it's great.
So-
I think everybody that I met,
The Aggie culture is great. I mean, very
phenomenal.
conservative.
very conservative,
and-
and they take care of themselves and they watch out for themselves. I love the Aggie culture. Mm-hmm. I really do. I think it's great. I call it a cult as in fun, but their culture is incredible. All right, so you're an Aggie. Then what?
So then it was a tough decision, but there weren't that many medical schools in Texas, and I went to UTMB, the medical branch in Galveston.
Okay.
And there, so the medical school was 4 years, and I stayed there another 3 years for my residency. So I lived in Galveston for 7 years.
So to become a doctor, it's 4 years of undergraduate,
Right,
then 4 years of medical,
right.
and then 3 years of residency.
3 for most specialties.
3 years of
internal medicine, family medicine. I think some of the surgical specialties are 4 years for like OB-GYN, obstetrics and gynecology. Surgery certainly is 4 years.
But the journey to become a doctor, an official doctor, is then about 11 years,
Yes,
right?
yes.
To complete it. Through that process, how many times did you go, I'm out? Or were you always like, this is what I'm doing?
This is what I always wanted to do. But it was very competitive. Trying to get into medical school in the late 70s, it was very competitive. And you would have like 5 applicants for every spot.
And you made it on the first shot?
No, I actually applied to Texas A&M. Texas A&M had just started a medical school. And after my sophomore year, I applied to Texas A&M, and I was one of the finalists. This is when I was like 18 years old, okay? And I spoke with the dean, and I became friends over the years. And he said, you were just a bit young, okay? But the second year when I was a junior, and actually after my junior year, 1 year from graduating, I actually had a couple of offers from a couple of different schools. That was 1 year later. And I wanted to be near the beach, so that's how I ended up in Galveston.
You got it. Not exactly like the beaches in Cuba, but you were near a beach. When you graduated from med school and you're not going to go to residency, how did you feel? Were you nervous, excited, combination of both?
Well, I saw things, the fulfillment of a dream happening. And so there was excitement. It was hard work. Residency is long hours. Medical school and residency are both long hours. But when you become a resident, you start to get paid a little bit. Okay, so that was good. Instead of having to pay the school,
you got a little something back.
Yeah.
How long were the hours?
So it depended on the rotation that you're doing. Some rotations, because for example, my favorite rotation was emergency medicine. And we would do 18 hours on, 36 hours off. So you were doing, like
long hour.
3.5 days a week.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have one brother.
Is he a doctor?
No.
Okay. So when you graduated and you're following after your dad's footsteps in the medical world,
right.
Maybe not pediatrician, but in the medical world, what did your dad say? How did your dad feel?
Well, he was very relieved because, we were all kind of feeling the pressure before I got into medical school. As I was going through my medical training, I actually would work in his office, and I'd follow him, I'd shadow him, and he would discuss certain things. And as a matter of fact, leading up to going to college, when I was 13, I started working at the Sweeney Hospital drawing blood, volunteering. You could do those kind of things back then. You didn't have to fill out a bunch of paperwork. It's like, hey, you want to come work over here? So I drew blood. I worked in the lab, learned about chemistry, and learned about doing EKGs. And so my whole career growing up, this is what I was preparing for. And when I graduated from residency, that was the funnest time because my dad and I worked in the office together. We had different strengths. He was more medical. I was more surgical, emergency type trained. So he would get to the office early, 6:30.
Yeah.
Okay, and start doing a little bit of paperwork. The office would open at 8. I wouldn't show up till 9 o'clock. But I also would stay late, and I would take care of any patients that came in late.
Afterwards.
And being on call. So it was really the funnest time.
So he was proud?
Oh, yeah.
When you were growing up, what was something that you could say, it could be one or two things. When you were growing up, what is something you go, you know what, this was one of the most memorable, pivotal, or happiest moments in my childhood? What can you pick? Like, when you look back and go, whether it was Cuba or Spain or when you were young in America, when you were growing up, so as a child growing up, was there a pivotal moment, a moment where something just clicked, a nice memory that you have?
Sure. So, I'm a person with strong spiritual beliefs. I'm a Christian. I'm, disciple of Christ. We grew up in a moral home, but my parents were not practicing Christian. My father was an atheist. And so we really didn't talk about God at home. But something inside of me always told me there was a God. And when we were in Madrid, we went to a boys' Catholic school. Okay. And I remember we had Bible class in the afternoon. And I remember that first time we sat together and, the person teaching was a priest or a pastor anyway, but he was talking about the attributes of God. When I heard that, it's like, yes, this is this is the God I've been knowing about. I want to hear more. So fascinating. So,
it's amazing how moments like that, I'm a Christian as well as I got saved when I was 10 years old. That's when I came to faith. My family really, we were in church when our kid, my parents were believers and we did go to church, but me, myself saying, this is what I'm going to follow, was when I was 10 years old. And it was a moment in children's church we were going to. Again, I was 10 years old. You were 7 or so. It's interesting how you have those callings that God sends certain things along the way to confirm that calling, right? Our calling to be a Christian, our calling to be Christ followers, which is important in everything we do, whether it's a businessman or a doctor or whatever the case may be. It's nice to see how that still holds that sentimental part in you of that moment where it was kind of like a confirmation of, yeah, this is the God that I'm.
So that moment was really the first introduction to spiritual things. I did not hear about the plan of salvation, about Jesus and the gospel until about 7 to about 4 years later, and I'll tell you about that. So we were living in East Texas at the time, and we went to a county fair, and as we're going along, there's a little kiosk there, and they're giving out Bibles. And they had this plan where they would mail back and forth. They would give you a pamphlet, you'd read it, you'd fill out some answers and mail it back. And then the next week, you get something else in the mail, and you read it, you send it back. And after doing this about 3 or 4 times, you win, a Bible. So as I was reading those pamphlets, those pamphlets were basically the plan of salvation, God's plan of redemption. Yeah. And so, the Bible is alive. And that's how I came to Christ. It's like, God died for me. And, anyone who believes in him will have eternal life. I believed, reading the Bible, not anybody coaching me. But I tell my family, so when we got that Bible, one of the things they talk about is read John 3:16. So I get to the back, 3rd John, and there's not a 16th chapter, So, because like I said, we had no coaching. Yeah.
That's funny. You're looking for John 3:16 and John 3. That's pretty good. What do you think throughout your career? What has been one of the hardest things that has happened in your career, and what has been one of the best things that happened?
So, overall, the career is very rewarding. I love what I do. I've had what I feel is a good balance. I love to come home and play, so I have, in my mind, enough downtime. But at first, one of the things that was tough was I expected, I wish I could have told patients every time this is going to be a positive outcome, okay? And I think I felt a sense of guilt when I couldn't tell them that. Like it was on me that sometimes things didn't turn out right. And, all we can do is follow the recommendations for a particular problem. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, and depending on the problem, sometimes there's a high failure rate, okay? Certain cancers, certain heart disease. So I remember back when I was at Sweeney in my early years, when I was working in the hospital there, that's a small hospital, but because it's a community hospital, everything will come in. So ambulances will bring in patients who are, having some serious problems. And I remember a 16-year-old young lady who was stabbed right here by another teenager. and she had just this little bitty cut, but it was, a knife, and she was gone. That was very tough. Her dad was there, and at the time I didn't have children, but I just knew it had to be tough. About 4 years ago, there was a case that a 6-year-old little girl that had been hurt, and so when at home, and she passed away. She, as a matter of fact, had rigor mortis. In other words, her neck was stiff. We couldn't resuscitate her, and so and then you could see, because of certain marks, nail marks. I didn't even want to examine her because I didn't want those things to remain in my mind. Yeah, the medical examiner, did the rest of the details. I never read it, didn't want to. But those are the difficult things when things happen where we hurt each other,
As I hear, I've always known you've been a man and a doctor with a good heart, a loving heart, a caring heart. I've seen you, when we've gone out with our wives and just in church or talking to you for a few minutes in general, your heart is always there. You're someone that sees your heart all the time. And as you're talking, I'm thinking how we sometimes forget that the doctor is a human being, right? And so we don't realize that the news, good or bad, is also affecting him. And that what he sees, along with what the patient sees, is also affecting him and stays in there, in the mind. And you obviously, the patient may see it in their world. You're seeing it over and over and over and over and over and over, which has got to be very, very hard. I think, it just came to mind as you were talking how sometimes we don't put the doctor's feelings in perspective of that he is a human being with a heart, with feelings, and is dealing with some harsh things.
And we still have to be able to function through the emotions, and then feel the emotion later. You have to, and actually I've been very good at that, about being focused on the problem and then feeling the emotion later. Come disconnect.
Yeah, you do your job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's good. It's good, Alex. What, and then the good is what? The ability to be able to.
Well, one of the things I love about emergency medicine is that many times you're able to fix the problem quickly. Nursemaid elbows are some of the funnest things because it's usually a 2-year-old. Their parent has picked them up by the arm, and then they don't move their arm. So you just walk up to them and just kind of rub their elbow a little bit and just turn, and and you feel the pop with your thumb, and then you say it's fixed. And it's like, but you were just with them for 5 seconds.
That's great.
And I said, let's watch them for a little bit and, watch them play, and you'll see that they'll start moving their arm again. So that's the fun part.
That's great.
So I got to tell you the one of my funnest cases. A young woman came in, and she said, there's a bug in my ear. And so I looked, and what I saw was she had a little hole in her eardrum, and you could see the tail of an ant kind of moving, like it was like gathering food on the other side, okay? And you could just kind of see it moving, and it just kind of, took me back, and I said, you've got a hole in your ear. And she said, yes, I know. And I said, how do you know? She said, because when I blow my nose, air comes out. And I said, do it now and do it hard. So she blew, and she blew the ant out right here. Yeah, now see, that is something that is not taught in medical school.
No,
you've got to just think, think quickly. That's
great.
the funnest case I've ever had.
That's another 5 minutes or so. Hey, we got the problem solved.
Yeah.
Ants out of your ear. Is TVER really like ER?
I don't watch it much, but that's about a bunch of
It makes it so dramatic.
Life drama. I will tell you that things like House, there are times when you're going through this checklist of, man, it could be this, this, or this. It's more likely to be this. Now, of course, we don't follow the patient for days and days like what's on House.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of, it could be this, it could be that, and you have to. I guess the main thing I've learned is discuss with the patient what you know. Okay, share with them what your education has taught you. Hey, this is what we're looking at. It could be this, this, or this. It's more likely to be this. Let's take this approach. Let's see how you respond. If you're getting worse, come back and let us reevaluate. Follow up with your doctor and give them a report. Yeah. So just share with them what you know.
Have you ever been working at the ER when it's just like nonstop patients coming in left and right?
Yeah.
Like almost out of control?
Yes. And that causes me some stress because I like to keep people happy. But when there's a bunch of people, you can only see one person at a time. And you have to see the sickest one first. And being in ER, there's not appointment. So sometimes you'll get the place that's full.
How was it during the pandemic? So probably towards the beginning of the pandemic, right?
It was
when nobody
odd.
knew nothing.
It was odd, okay? Because for a while there, people did not want to come in at all when they were very sick.
Because they're scared.
They're scared. I was scared to go to work.
Yeah.
It's the first time in my life that I was like concerned about my career.
Right.
And I actually volunteered for the Moderna study because it's like, yeah, give me a shot at something that'll give me some protection. It was scary.
Did you have any patients that you had to intubate or send them?
Yes. Because some emergency rooms closed, we had to share our shifts with other doctors. And so at North Cyprus, where I normally work, I went down to about a third of the shifts that I normally work. And I looked for somewhere else to work, and I went back to work in Belleville, at the hospital in Belleville, because I used to work there 15 years ago. And so I went to work there, and they had some sick patients in-house that they couldn't get out. And yes, we had to intubate some patients.
Right.
Yeah.
And do the whole protect the room and cover and dress them in, dress them out.
Yeah.
What a chaos, right?
Yes. Yes.
What chaos? You think that'll happen again? I know that's not.
Well, I think we've learned a few things, and so if it happens again,
We'll be better prepared.
We may accept that you have to continue doing some living. People can't just stay at home.
Man, I think, and again, and not get into the politics of this or like that. I don't want to do that, but we've learned some stuff, right?
Yeah.
Maybe let me put it that way.
Yeah.
As an example, correct me where I'm wrong, because I could be wrong. We've learned that the 6-foot rule didn't matter.
We don't know whether it's 6 foot, but yeah, the farther away you are, the better.
Okay, but there was no scientific fact behind that, is what I heard. Is that not true?
The droplets can get only so far when people
Okay.
cough.
So it is true that certain space
Yes.
is right.
Yes.
Because droplets could only make it so far.
Yes, but some people sneeze harder than others.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. I mean, my sneeze would go far.
That's right.
I'll hit Butch here in a second if I have a sneeze, Okay, so that's a good. What about masks? Are masks really do something or they don't?
They're helpful. They don't guarantee that you won't catch something. Because stuff comes out from around the mask.
Right, especially if it's me sneezing,
You
right?
know.
If it's me sneezing, the mask will probably go like this, and then everything goes, out everywhere. But we have learned some stuff, and I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist, so I'm just, my own little opinion. But I do think if life continues somehow, somewhat, it's good for your immune system, your self-esteem, your mind, hope. But locking people up, it seems to be a problem mentally and probably physically.
Yeah, we live in such a mobile world. So when something happens on the other side of the world, people are flying in and out all the time, and so it gets spread over here, and then it spreads out, and so you have to limit the amount of travel. I mean, it's just we live in a world that stuff will spread pretty fast.
I think I was thinking back as we were talking. You and I think, and our wives, I think we went out. We were like after that pandemic. I think you were one of the first, if not the first couple we went out with.
We had some gathering, I think, at your house first, like a group gathering, and people were a little cautious. Yeah, I'm trying to remember whether that was a Christmas dinner or what.
Yeah, I don't know.
People had optional masking.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't see my parents for 2 years.
No kidding.
Yeah, they were in their 90s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just to be safe.
Yeah.
So what we did is we had everybody do a COVID test. So my parents who were old, they would,
I sort of remember this.
Yeah.
That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah. We just said, okay, well, we want to get together, and my parents want to get together, and so like Christmas, the Christmas of 2020, we told the whole family, I don't remember how many it was, 40 people. Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll all take a COVID test, and if it's all positive, we get together and hope for the best, and that's what we did. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, it worked well. Thank God for us. Do you think that doctors today graduating have the same stamina that doctors like you who've been in this for 40 years have? And maybe I'm not phrasing it right, but we talked about today you work 72 hours. Mm-hmm. So you work today 72 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And however the combination of schedule is, but you work 72 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because you were talking, you wanted to bring it down to 40, right? Which 40 is the normal hours per week, right? So you're going from 72 to normal. Mm-hmm. But you've got the strength and the willpower, and you love what you do, and you got passion. Do you think that the new kids graduating today have that type of will?
I remember one guy that I was in residency with when he said, I'm going to go work for, I think it was Kelsey-Seybold or something. I want to go work at the Kelsey-Seybold Clinic for 40 hours a week and, go into the office and then come home and I'm done. I thought, wow, why would someone do that? But, that's what some people enjoy. Some people want a little bit more, more action. So, and nowadays, for example, when I work at the smaller freestanding emergency rooms, there's less action. Ambulances do not bring gunshot wounds to us or stabbings to us. They may bring something minor, like somebody fell, they hurt their leg, they can't walk. This is something that we can assess. But major things that are going to require a surgeon or a stroke team, things like that, the ambulance will take them straight to one of the larger inpatient hospitals. I wouldn't want to be at the ER there nowadays. When I was young, I kind of looked forward to that. But nowadays,
thrive off of it.
I just want to have a steady pace, a little calmer.
Spend more time with the patient.
As far as longevity, I think this is what's going to, help me continue to enjoy what I'm doing.
Do you think medicine is getting better or worse?
Better. Yeah. We know much more.
I would think so too.
Not only that.
I mean, it's not a trick question, but I would just think science gets better.
Hey,
we learn more by mistakes and non-mistakes.
I am still constantly, at least a couple of times a day, looking at medical reference information. Okay, there's a really good app called Up to Date, and it gives you a summary of what experts believe is the best way to handle this case or that case. And even for things that I have treated for many years, I'll just go and double check. Is there something new? Like strep. Is there some resistance nowadays to penicillin? Should I be using a different antibiotic? And just spend 5 minutes just confirming and then move on. Not that I don't know how to treat strep, but it's like, is there something new?
Well, and that's fine. I mean, again, it wasn't like a trick question. I think the non-scientist, the non-medical mind. But by just process, it's got to be getting better, right? Because we learn more. And we have more things, and now we have the internet instead of the book that you used to get, remember? So now you get your answers quicker, and now you got more people's opinion. I don't know if that's necessarily good.
And pages come in after having Googled things.
That's me.
And, I tell them, hey, I'm glad you Googled it. You have a little bit of idea of what we're going to be talking about. Let me sort it out for you.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what's really
Do you like
here.
patients to Google or no?
I don't mind, but when they try to tell me...
Like when I have something, should I Google, hey, why is this happening?
I think
or should I just go to the doctor?
No, I think it's good to be prepped a little bit and have an idea of different things.
The problem is you Google sometimes and it's like cold to cancer. The symptoms fit in cold to cancer.
Right. And that's where you need someone with experience to sort it out.
And then you start thinking about the worst, right?
Because when you, don't go and sell all your stock, based on what you read on Google about your disease.
Right. My wife always says, don't go to Google. Don't go to Google. Alex, what's your favorite car?
So I'll tell you about the first car that we had in the United States.
Okay.
So it was a white four-door Pontiac, 69 Le Mans, similar to the GTO. Okay, that whole family of Pontiac, GTO, Firebird. Those were beautiful cars in the late 60s, early 70s. I think they got a little uglier when Smokey and the Bandit. I didn't like the shape of those cars, but the front on the early 70s, that Firebird. Preparing for this conversation, I started looking at pictures, and man, I love the way those look. It's like, hey, I can get one, but
there's get back and reminisce on those.
There's not room in my garage for that. But
listen, you can always build more. What about favorite places that you've traveled? What's your favorite place you've traveled?
So, wow, there are some beautiful places. My wife Jennifer and I went to Beaver Creek. Oh, there's so many places when you go in the fall, the leaves turning, just beautiful. So Colorado, Beaver Creek, and Yosemite. I took the whole family over there, and we all loved it. It's just beautiful, the Yosemite Valley. Anything having to do with mountains, valleys, I love that. We went to Vermont last summer, and when it was 100 degrees here for a month, it was 72 there.
And Vermont is beautiful.
I had never experienced anything like that in the summertime.
So if you go to Vermont again, go in March. Like if you go to Burlington,
yes,
you can drive to Montreal. Have you been to Montreal?
We did that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
That's what we did.
But you did it in the summer.
We started out going to Montreal. It was fun looking at this.
It's like 2.5 hours, right?
Yeah.
It's not that bad. It's great.
Yeah.
And you go through farms. But in Montreal, if you go in March, they have a thing called Sugar Shack. Have you ever been to that?
No.
Everywhere. So everywhere in Montreal, Quebec, mainly towards Quebec, they have these sugar shacks, and they are maple syrup farms.
Mm.
And what they do is they set up these dinners. They only do it in March, April, around that time, and everything has maple.
Okay.
So you just make your reservations, you show up, and they give you tons of food, all with a maple theme, and at the end, you go taste maple or do whatever. And a lot of these places have maple. They get a like a lollipop stick, put maple on it, throw it in the snow, it freezes it, and then you lick it. So Sugar Shack, remember that you'll love it. It's a good trip. Okay, a place that you have not gone to on your bucket list that you would like to go to.
Well, we'd like to go to Israel. We were supposed to go this February, but
With the church trip?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never been to Israel, and so I'd like to go to Israel. I'd like to go through Europe. I love history. I like to put myself in the place of, where people were before and imagine what it must have been like. We don't think enough about what travel was like even 100 years ago.
Yes.
If you wanted to go somewhere, well, on land, you'd have to have horses and carriages. Yeah, that's
later maybe some places got the train.
And if you're going to go somewhere, by sea,
ship.
That's right. And you didn't have radars. You didn't know what you were going to encounter. So we don't think about that enough.
And now 8 hours you're in London.
That's right.
It's amazing. Again, like science, that travel has also evolved very, very well.
Can you believe I don't really care about Hawaii?
You're not a beach guy? Are you more?
Oh, I am a beach guy. We went to Cozumel right after Thanksgiving this year. Loved it.
You prefer beach over mountains?
No.
You prefer mountains over beach?
Yes.
Which is unusual for Cuba.
Well, I like the cool weather.
Okay.
I used to snow ski a lot, but I'm liking more the fall weather in the mountains.
Yeah. Oh, you can't.
Summer weather.
Northeast in October is just unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. What about favorite food?
Mostly Mexican.
Tex-Mex?
Yeah.
That kind of guy.
Yes.
I could do that every day, all day long. I love Tex-Mex.
When I was a teenager, so at school, kids would ask me, do you like Mexican food? Like, I don't know. I've never had it. And they thought because I spoke Spanish that, that's what we ate is Mexican food. And anyway, so I remember the first Mexican food place. Oh, it was Pancho's.
The flag?
Yes, Pancho's.
I used to love Pancho's when I was a teenager.
We would go with the tennis team.
Yeah.
And, on a bus, and we would stop at Pancho's, and that was my introduction.
Mexican buffet.
That's right.
All you can eat. But no, I loved it.
That was
People think I was crazy, but I loved it. I loved it.
But then in the 80s, Nifas came along.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, yeah. So that was...
the sopapillas at Pancho's. Mm-hmm. Those sopapillas at Pancho's were something else, man. I remember those days for sure. Well, Alex, I appreciate you being on. It's been great. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your career. Thank you for helping people. I appreciate your friendship.
Well, I appreciate your friendship, and when we get together, it's always fun.
Yeah.
We both want we want to serve the Lord, and we want to bring good things to other people.
That's right. Amen. Well, cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Wheels, Deals, and Meals, your main source for all things good and fun, business, food, and cars. If you like this episode, make sure to rate us and subscribe. If you would like to be a guest on our show, please leave a message at the link below. Till next time, happy eating.